All right, I am now joined by a very special guest, Lance Brozdowski, player development analyst at Marquee Sports Network. Lance, thank you so much for hopping on, man. I was just telling how much of a big fan I am, so this is a really cool moment for me. I think people are going to enjoy this. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, and the Will Crow jersey got me, as you have behind you. So that was dope. The first thing I saw in the meeting, I was like, "Oh, you know, ball. You got a Will Crow jersey framed. I love it."
It's great when I have like work Zoom calls at this desk because though I have to like hide my background because I get embarrassed. Like, some
Yeah,
people
they're
don't
like,
know
"Is your last
ball.
name Crow or what?" Yeah,
Yeah, I used to play men's
yeah,
league
yeah,
softball.
yeah.
Um, So I wanted to talk a ton of pitchy stuff, but I want to talk first about like your background because I was just saying like I read your Substack, Lance's pitchers notes every morning. You do an incredible job of like you must have just like every baseball game on every single night because the depth of like every team you cover, it's like you see stuff. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I know like the whole theme of your Substack is like breaking down complicated baseball topics for like people like me, so I can digest them. How did you kind of build the foundation of knowledge to be able to do all that?
I'd say like the primary thing is just talking to a lot of people. I have like a couple of years ago, I want to say like 2023 off season maybe. What I did was like anytime someone followed me on Twitter or whatever, that I thought that had like a baseball title. So like I don't know, pitching coordinator in the Rays org or whatever. I would just jot it down in a sheet and like a notes on my phone, and then I went back that off season and like literally try to connect with as many people as I could, and that proved to be pretty fruitful because a lot of those people now are like higher up than they were 3 years ago, and it's just that helps me a lot. I think reading a lot, obviously consuming like the big thing. I was just joking with someone else I was talking to. Like, I feel like an aggregator sometimes, which makes me a little bit unfortunate. Like I want to do more original research. I'm trying to like learn potentially Python this off season and stuff to get into stuff, which I don't have too much of a base in. But I enjoy like other people's takes, and I think I talk to enough people and have conversations with people who are incredibly smart that it's just allowed me to bounce questions off them. Like you read and then you have the ability to bounce stuff off somebody, and you have enough of a source space where you're not hitting up the same person every single time, so you drive them insane. Hit like once a month, twice, like once every other month I'll maybe try to reach out to somebody. It works. Like it's like a roulette of people where it's like, oh, I have this question, let me go to this guy and talk to him in a month and a half, and it really helps from like just distilling the info and making sure I'm on the right track. It also gives me confidence in then delivering my own content, because a lot of the times what I'm writing is like my opinion, but also sometimes like I'm not just going to write like, again, spoke with the guy in the Rays org, about this, about Taj Bradley or Shane Baz. I'm just going to write it, like they're
Yeah.
informing my take, and then I'm going to digest that and turn it into something else. So sometimes what I'm writing is like coming from people who know exactly what's happening. So I just don't, I guess I come from a journalism background, but I know the standard there is always like, define the sources specifically as possible, but it's hard to get people on the record. And I find that I have better conversations when I don't do that. But I don't know. That's something I'll probably have to correct in time if I want to be the next Ken Rosenthal or whoever, which is a difficult thing. So I admire
The
those guys a
scoops
lot.
game. Yeah, that's a whole
It's a
different
completely
world.
different beast. Yeah, yeah.
So like the role that you do now with like Marquee Sports Network, I feel like it's so unique. I don't know if there's like a ton of other guys, maybe at the regional sports network, I'm just not aware of that like player development analyst. Like, did you have like somebody that like you tried to like emulate? Did you have like somebody you looked up to, or did you kind of forge your own path when it came to some of the media stuff?
Entirely my own. I mean, I definitely had influences. Like I love a lot of writers in the industry. Jeff Sullivan is someone I wrote or read, excuse me, for a really long time in Fangraphs before he got scooped by the Rays. He's kind of like one of the OG. He used to write every day for Fangraphs and come up with interesting stuff. I loved him. I mean, it's funny too because like a lot of the people I admire, like I now interact with consistently, like Kylie McDaniel, ESPN, Eric Longenhagen. Both like I've read their stuff growing up a ton, and I really enjoyed their insights. I've obviously been a little biased towards the minor leagues for a while, but trying to get more on the major league side. And I mean, that's where my bread and butter is and where the bigger audience is. But yeah, I don't think there was any influence. I mean, we created the role here for me with the prior regime who was at Marquee. I don't know anybody else. I mean, I guess I don't rip through a bunch of RSNs. I don't watch a ton of other pre-post shows, etc. But I don't think there's anybody else that kind of does what I do. I'm not trying to like pump my own tires, but like it's just a weird role. Like I can video edit. I help on the production side. I work with our talent here and build tapes out. So like if they want to talk about a pitcher the Cubs are facing, I'll literally video edit together that tape for them and do some like cool stuff on it, simple stuff, etc. And then I'm on air too. Like also, I literally have my own segment that I'm ideating, sending to our producer, sending out video requests for board requests, building the boards, and then going delivering it. I just think that's uncommon. But I think that integration, vertical integration, is like the only way to do it. Just because I don't think there are, again, I'm not trying to pump my tires, but there's just not a lot of people that can like talk to a director of pitching one day and have a really productive conversation and then go distill what that director of pitching is telling you about what that org is trying to do down and deliver it to a TV audience that isn't overwhelmed. And like, I totally understand some of my stuff's probably overwhelming from most people who aren't like really interested in the advanced side of baseball, but I've been really lucky here to be given the opportunity to like do this stuff and them understanding that it's not for everybody. And I'm convinced that we need more content like that, as opposed to just assuming that, every person who played prior can sit on a desk and like copy paste stuff they've heard their entire life, and I get that those people are probably getting more clicks to me, but like I would bet that there's, you look at a lot of stuff that's grown on YouTube on the football side, Mina Kimes, Peter Schrager, Warren Sharp, like they do great stuff. That's all people who didn't really play. I don't think Sharp played. I know the other two didn't, but like they do awesome work. Like I learn more from them than I do from listening to like Chris Collinsworth. No offense, but like it's just the reality of the beast. We're getting to a spot in media where you have to be really good and specific. And I've been trying to hammer that niche to convince people in the baseball space that it's necessary to have more people like Mike Perciello on air, et cetera. And those are probably my influences now, is the people in the roles that I would love to do, one day. Like Perciello does a great job at what he does. Like his stuff's awesome. I'd love to be doing that in 5 to 10 years. So long-winded answer, but it's a fascinating industry and one that I'm happy to be in.
No, it's such a unique lane because like every year, like there's definitely a need for like guys like me who like I go on Baseball Savant every day and I'm still learning like some of the analytics stuff.
I'm learning too, man.
Especially like the pitching stuff. Like I'm buddies with a bunch of pitchers and I always just like ask them random questions like what is that? What does arm side run have to do with this or whatever? So it's like having somebody in the media to be able to, break some of that stuff down, explain X axis and all that stuff. Like, first of all, when you go to Savant, are you a savant at Savant? Are there things that you just, to look for?
Yeah, I'd say like, I definitely know the inner workings of Savant. Like that search tool I'm in all the time. I would say like the main issue I have to critique myself is like, I get really comfortable in certain queries in Savant or ways of finding information that I wonder if it limits my ability to find other information. But that's a really good tool. I've used other tools in the past. True Media I had access to last year, which was great. Once you like learn the tool and the platform, it's hard to like push out of that platform and be like, oh, let me go learn, Sport Radar, which is like a TV side sports analytics place that does a lot of similar to StatHead, like I'm not the best in StatHead. I'm really good at Alex Chamberlain's pitch leaderboard, Baseball Savant, and getting Excel files from some of my sources in the league on minor league data and stuff. Like I'm good at those things. And I think it suffices, anytime I have like a question in my head, I can generally answer it, like, oh, I wonder what the league trend is in cutter usage to left-handed hitters from right-handed pitchers in the back half of the game, and it's like, I can grab that in probably under a minute. So it's like the ability to like have a question in my head and then go answer it quickly is super important. Now, as to whether like the big thing is stitching back like some of the stuff I write to whether it actually matters, which is like a hilarious thing for me to admit. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know, like this seems like a cool trend, but in the larger scope of baseball, does it matter? Like, does this have any impact? Or the big thing now I've run into is just like trying to understand contact quality allowed on certain pitch types. It's really hard because you need the sample to be massive. So like if a guy gives up 2 barrels on a pitch, that pitch is probably going to have like a terrible X slug, terrible X wob on contact. Basically, you'll say it's like a bad pitch from a ball and play standpoint, but then you go watch the 2 pitches and it's like, oh, he just missed over the plate 2 times. It's like, does that mean that's a bad pitch from like an execution standpoint? So that's like the bucket I'm in right now, where most people are just like, you can't really look at the batted ball data. And I'm like, but that tells such a huge story of the game I just watched, That's what I struggle with. I mentioned that a lot in my Substack, and I admit that like, I don't know how predictive a lot of, this guy allowed a bunch of contact quality issues on this pitch when in reality, like he just missed twice. So maybe it's at the end of the day, just a location thing, pitchers influence launch angle a lot by where they're throwing a pitch. And maybe at the end of the day, that's what I'm highlighting rather than saying a pitch is bad. I'm just telling you where he threw the pitch.
The data's out there. Yeah. It's cool that you are out there to, put the puzzle pieces together. And you're right. I just love the idea of you spending all like time and effort on something. You're like, am what I doing? Does this matter?
It's a form of imposter syndrome, I guess, like I think I've gotten past that mostly in industry and like done a good job of just keeping my head down and doing work and stuff and not being like, do I belong here? It's like, I think I do, I'm confident enough to say, I think I do. I don't know if I'm the best in the industry, but I'm going to try to be the best. And I'm going to try to talk to a bunch of people to help me get there. So yeah, it's kind of how I process info.
I loved because like I'm MLB Network junkie and I turned on the draft this year and you're up on the desk. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Cause like, I know who that guy is. Yeah. I read his stuff. A lot of the draft prep probably had to go into this. I wanted to talk about like a couple of guys and then just get your take overall on some of the draft stuff. Like,
yeah.
So I'm in DC. I'm a Nats guy. I really wanted them to take Kate Anderson. I know you had done a
Mhm.
little bit of work with reading like your YouTube thing. You did a
Yeah.
great couple comps and breakdowns. Um, is Cade Anderson the kind of guy that like can he move through a system quickly? Does he have the stuff to be a pretty quick riser?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, with lefties, the main thing you're doing and talking to people, and this is something that's pretty well known, but just like, what is your approach to righties is like a huge question. Like, can you get major league right-handed hitters out? You're going to face them 75%, 80% of the time. Like most lefties can get lefties out. If you can't, then like, I don't know, add a sinker or throw a sweeper, you know? But like, if the big thing is just understanding that righty approach. And this is like the divergence between like a Liam Doyle, I would say, from Tennessee, who ended up going to the Cardinals, and Cade Anderson is like Cade's mix is pretty deep. He's a pretty high floor guy. Everyone gave him like a Max Fried comp, even if he doesn't cut his fastball as much. But it's that kind of mold where it's like the slider shape's comparable, cut fastball, curveball's good, changeup's probably a little underutilized at LSU. Can definitely throw more in the majors if when he eventually gets there. I think that the pitching tier was a little bit more collapsed and flatter than I thought it was. Like a lot of people just had Cade as their number one. I thought about that for a while. I think I ended up putting him number one after some people talked me into it, but for like the majority of the spring, I was like not on him at one. I was kind of more on Liam Doyle. And then I backed off Liam Doyle because everyone was like, oh, there's reliever risk, there's intent and delivery. And then, of course, he goes to the Cardinals ahead of Jamie Arnold, who I really liked. So it's like this hilarious ebb and flow where like you start to understand what teams valued in this equation here. But yeah, I think Cade Anderson can move really quick. The mix is deep. The upside there is a question for me, especially with the Mariners in terms of changing some of their internal philosophies on the minor league side. They used to be like a really low release, slidery, sinker slider, no forcing team. And then year over year, they actually jumped their slider usage a ton, which to me signals that there's someone up there in the director of pitching side or elsewhere that is starting to influence things away from what they've done for the past couple of years. And maybe that plays into Cade Anderson's hands, where it's like that actually helps him. Because in the past, if you go to 2023, Jamie Arnold was like is the Mariners pitcher. You know, it's low release, it's a sinker, it's a sweeper, etc. And the fact that they prefer to Cade Anderson, perhaps because he's just a better pitcher, he had better results, etc. Pitched in the College World Series, maybe they saw more projection there, etc. But yeah, the Mariners are doing cool stuff, and I'm fascinated to see how Cade aligns with their new philosophy, so to speak.
For a pitcher to like move quickly, obviously it's mostly the college guys, but like are there traits that like teams look for to say like, okay, this guy has the stuff already that like he could pitch in the big leagues with it?
I would say two buckets there. Yeah, it's command, like strike throwing. You can move really quick with that because you're just like guys. If you watch like A ball, I don't watch much A ball anymore, but like if you do, it's a trip, especially now with how weak a lot of the talent is. Like guys just don't find the zone. So like you're just send your pitcher to high A if he had like a 65 to 70% strike rate in the SEC. There's no point sending him to Class A. And then by that point, like you'll realize quickly if his stuff's good enough, send him to Double A. But yeah, there's two bins. I would say like if you're a strike thrower, you can move quick. The other angle is like teams have stuff models in the minors. And I think they're just accelerating guys who they know have good stuff. And if you have good stuff and you're throwing strikes, it's how you get like Peyton Tolley, who's like flying through the minors. You know, that's a great example. Like he's already up at AAA. I wouldn't be stunned to see him up at the end of the year with the Red Sox. Like his stuff's good enough and he's throwing strikes. So like I don't really know what else you want there. Maybe there's some elements of like mixed diversity and repertoire development that are important to be successful as a starter in the major leagues. But for the most part, that stuff, you know, especially if it's more peripheral weapons, if the guy has like two weapons for each handedness and they're good, you could probably layer in like a cutter and a sinker or some kind of curveball to steal strikes and back off your forcing early count. You can do that pretty quickly. Like I don't think you need a year in the minor leagues for the guy to learn a cutter or sinker. You know, you see that happen at the major league level all the time, especially if you have a great fastball.
Were there guys that you did draft prep on that you thought were kind of under the radar that you think that like not a lot of people are talking about?
Yeah, Riley Quick went to the Twins, I believe. This was a name that was brought up by a couple directors of pitching I talked to in the draft process. Ended up going to the Twins. I know there's some teams directly after the Twins there that were like really hoping he fell to them. I struggled with why he fell on the injury side. I think he was coming off Tommy John. There was some rumors that he was like kind of rushed back off Tommy John. But Tommy John's like becoming a pretty clean surgery for most guys where it's like, cool, you just like lose the year and then you're back and you're probably throwing harder. And like maybe your slop dropped a little, which we're seeing a bit of, but Quick had two fastballs. He's throwing insanely hard. He's a huge dude. I have no idea what's going to help guys stay healthy, but I imagine pure mass and movement patterns and the ability to sit like 97 off TJ is a pretty good indicator that his body might be able to absorb more force over time compared to like a Jamie Arnold. You know, I love Jamie Arnold, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know if both those guys are throwing 96 in 3 years. Like, I imagine Arnold's body might be a little more stressed than a guy like Riley Quick. He's literally like a linebacker. So, like, he had the body, he had the stuff, he had spin rates, he had velocity. I don't entirely know why he went as late as he went. I feel like that's going to end up being a steal for the Twins. I think I had him, it's like my fourth or fifth pitcher on my board. He ended up going, I don't know what he went. Maybe he went the 10th. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but he went comp round. I believe that was like 33-5 or whatever the window was. The Twins had that pick. I love him. I think he's a great pitcher.
Interesting. I have a dumb question because
Yeah.
there's always like these cliches of baseball, especially with pitching. It's like, well, the best pitch in baseball is a well-located fastball. And
This is great. Yeah, go.
I've watched a lot of your stuff and I've read like Fangraph stuff. So like fastball usage is just going down every single year. If the best pitch is a well-located fastball, why does it keep going down?
Because it's not a located fastball. I just stumbled over my words like 3 times because I'm passionate about this. But I run into this all the time. I'm not going to call it our talent here, but we have great conversations. Like I talk to a lot of old school people here, and I wouldn't say old school, but just people who played at a really high level, much higher level than I did, and have thoughts. And it's like reconciling those thoughts with what is currently occurring in baseball is often a very hard thing to do, especially if I don't come in with the playing experience of like, I was in the show for 3 years, like I didn't play at a high level. I didn't really play in college at all. Like I'm not particularly great at baseball, but like, I'd like to think like my high school playing days were enough to give me like some idea. And then again, I'm like, I don't want to say I'm an aggregator, but I talk to a ton of people. It's like, I'm not just making stuff up. Like a lot of the stuff that I have confidence in saying is stuff that someone who's far smarter than me running a major league pitching department is generally telling me. So yeah, it's not. I mean, like, I don't know if you want to qualify based on locations, probably a well-located splitter, like those pitches miss more bats, create more chase, don't allow any contact quality. So like, it's a terrible answer, but yeah, well-located splitter is probably the best pitch in baseball. Well-located slider, sweeper is probably next. But when you qualify based on command, I don't entirely know. Now I'll jump to the other side because I enjoy thinking about like the other side in a lot of arguments. I think it's really important to understand your own argument. If you the point people say that at is, I guarantee anyone who says that is like, because it sets up other pitches. It's like because you establish that fastball lane away and then you can do anything you want off that. And that is a completely different situation. The best pitch in baseball, if you're telling me in an individual instant, is what I'm saying on the splitter slider side. If you're telling me like in an at bat against a hitter you've seen 4 times, like, okay, tell me what the prior 3 ABs looked like. Maybe that away fastball is the best pitch. This gets into like a lot of the game planning and game theory of baseball. There are instances where a well-located fastball is the best pitch, but it requires so much context as to what occurred in the AB and who the hitter is and all these other things that if you're just talking zoomed out broad scope, I'm going to win that argument 10 out of 10 times by saying the splitter, because like the fastball is never going to have better results than a splitter, especially if you're giving me the qualifier of location. So few things happen in the shadow of the zone. Fastball damage is still more than slider and splitter damage in the shadow. So that's kind of where I end in that argument. But it's one that I run into way more than you think, which is why I was laughing when you brought it up.
I've always heard that, and I just assumed it was right. And like it sounds good when you say it, though, does it? Right? It's like, oh, that does sound great.
Good. Yeah, that's something that if like you played, you're gonna say on air, and no one's gonna question you. And it's like until you get me on a desk with you, where I'm like, that's wrong. Like, I'm sorry, it's wrong. That's like what I'm trying to get to, is being the person who's in those situations where it's like I don't want to fact check, but I just want to like challenge these beliefs because like they're not really backed up with anything objective. They're just like things we throw out there. And hey, a lot of the time they're probably going to be correct. We've seen this a lot with data. Data ends up proving things that scouts have thought for a long time. Totally fair. But I don't know if we could just throw that stuff out there and are believing people. I don't know. I struggle with how that makes us smarter as a baseball society.
I like that. You always have to, a healthy amount of skepticism is always needed in these kind of things, because like otherwise you just go up, just go along with that. You sit on a desk, say it, whatever. Did you also in a video, like I think I watched, you did a thing on the cutter recently where like, did you say that like most guys just don't have good fastballs in general? Is that why they're having to mix in other stuff?
Yeah. I mean, you answered this a second ago. Why are 4-seamers dropping in the league? It's because like they get hit more than anything. So if you could give me something else you could zone, like that allows less damage and maybe does a little less on the whiff side, I could just use your fastball in different spots. I wouldn't say most guys don't have good fastballs. I would say like it's overstated how good guys' fastballs are a lot of the time, especially when it's like you bring back in the qualifier of location, which again, I think we overstate a pitcher's ability to locate a lot of the time, especially on local broadcasts where it's like, man, if he could just locate his fastball, it'll work. And it's like, I agree with you, but like he has not shown a history of doing that. So like, what are we saying here in that respect? But yeah, I think a lot of the time, it's like this concept of like revealed preference, which is like, I'm not going to really listen to what you're telling me. I'm going to look at what you're doing, and it's funny because like I do this a lot of the time on the minor league side with like aggregated data, where like every team will tell you talk to any GM or anything you hear publicly, it's like, we're just trying to optimize these pitchers. We're very individualized as an organization, and I agree with that. I think any team is trying to do that, but you see a lot of very, very sharp tendencies from organizations, which I think I'm starting to understand is more biases and models that they build in decision making. So it's like, well, why are the Red Sox throwing so few four seams? It's like, well, their model probably tells them that's not appropriate pitch. And it's like, well, why the Dodgers and the Rays throw a reasonable amount of four seams, put them in the zone and throw them hard? It's like their models are telling them that the four seam fastball is really valuable, just has to have good shape. So I love backing into that stuff and really using that as like, I'm not going to listen to like what Andrew Friedman says if it's a copy paste answer on like what they do in the minor leagues on the pitching side. I'm going to go look at the minor league data and then try to reconcile between the two. Maybe there's some overlap, maybe there isn't. But again, I think it's important to like look at objective info and consider how it supports or doesn't support what people are saying publicly.
No doubt. All right, I want to get your take on a couple guys, especially because, like I said, DC Baltimore guy, Trevor Rogers. This was somebody when he got traded over to the Orioles, it just looked like he didn't have it anymore, and it was very, very frustrating, especially for the people I'm friends with, just going back and forth. This year, though, he's like one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball. Is it just a simple fact as he's getting healthy? Is there anything you've noticed when you've been looking at some of his data stuff that can maybe point to some of that?
Man, that's a good one because he's a guy. Every now and then, there's pitchers I run into where I'm just like, man, I just don't know. You know what I mean? And he's one that I kind of feel like I'm not entirely sure on. Like the velo's up, and it's like maybe it's as simple as that at the end of the day. Like he's throwing a tick harder than he was last year. He's more in line with, I'm looking right now, 2023 than he was 2024. He was like 92 and 24. He's 93 this year. But you go back to 21 and 22 when he was like an intriguing prospect and he put up a really good season in 2021, 4 at Fangraphs WAR, 2.64 ERA and like 133 innings. And he was 95 that year. So, I mean, I think the idea the entire time was like Baltimore ID'd something mechanically that was potentially off with him and they could fix it. It took him a little to do that. And it's up, but it's not up as much as I thought. I thought they'd get him back to 94, 95, 94, 6, They're not. So there occasionally are guys, and I think I've mentioned him in my Substack where I'm just like, I think it's maybe just that the velo's up, his location isn't even like amazing. Like I would say he zones pretty well and like he maybe has some lefty deceptive traits, but his stuff isn't great from like a modeling standpoint. And I struggle. Like I'm a bit baffled as to how he's been this good. And I guess that's kudos to the Orioles because maybe it was all just the velo. Sometimes I have more complex answers and sometimes it's just whatever he's doing in his body to get him back to 93 maybe is that big of a difference than being 92 last year.
Yeah, it just seems like, especially with him, because I think he's got like a 1.4 ERA or something. He's like taking the world by storm. Yeah, he's taking the world by storm. And it's like, sometimes the simplest answer is just that. It's just like, he's throwing harder. He's healthy. Feels good. Like,
yeah, it could be that, man. Sometimes it's far more complex, but I don't know. I'm going to admit, I'm not going to keep digging if like I just see velo up and the guy's better and I don't see anything else different. So he's a tough one.
There's another guy also, MacKenzie Gore. You've talked about him a lot in your Substack where it's like over-reliant with his fastball when he's behind the count. I've talked to some of my other pitcher. I even asked Will about this, but he was just like, I don't know, maybe it's just what he feels most comfortable with is a fastball. But it's not working out for him. And obviously he's given up, I think, 14 runs in his last 2 starts. Why do you think he's continued to stick with that mix even though it's not working? And what is it about over-reliance of fastball behind the count that isn't really great?
I mean, again, fastballs allow the most damage. So, like, you're putting the pitch that allows the most damage in a count that hitters do the most damage in. It's like a convergence of very bad things. Can you get away with it? Yeah, just don't get into those counts or get into those counts less. This is something Kevin Gossman's done for a lot of his career. He's a great strike thrower, and, like, he's been okay throwing a lot of four-seam behind the count. He doesn't usually get into those spots. So, like, in the end, the damage he allows there isn't that big of an issue. But yeah, I actually talked to Gore at All-Star Media Day in Atlanta, and it didn't give me like a ton of insight, but I kind of tried to prod him as to whether he thought his four-seam usage would drop throughout his career. And he like kind of backed around the answer, but he seemed to imply the answer was yes. I'll say the one thing that I kind of realized the other day, I was looking at some like catcher framing leaderboards. The Nats have 2 of the worst catchers in baseball. Yep. And I don't know. I gotta imagine, catching is still something I don't think we do a great job of figuring out the value on. Like, I know we had a big framing adjustment a couple of years ago that seemed to bear a lot of pretty good fruit. Like we jumped a lot of the framers up and down, blah, blah, blah. I wonder whether he's negatively affected in some way we can't quantify by having 2 of the worst catchers from a framing perspective in baseball. So I don't know. Like, there are answers on the MacKenzie Gore side there where it's like, yeah, I'd pull down the four seam. I think his slider is really good. It's been good for a really long time. He just doesn't throw it a lot to righties. Probably room for more change, more curve, more slider, like just even that out and pull down the four seam mix, especially to righties. I think he would be equally as good. And I mean, honestly, he didn't really make too many dramatic adjustments. And like his K rate jumped a bit this year. His peripherals look better despite the outlying results here being terrible these last couple starts. But like, look at his four seam trend. 2023 threw it 60% of the time. 24 is 55. This year it's 50. So like, I think there's a room where he's 45 to 40 next year, and you're compounding again, and he gets Young votes. Like, I think he's an amazing pitcher from a variety of standpoints. He has that rare, like, hey, your fastball is actually good lefty traits. You're just throwing it a little too much, you know? And we've seen a lot of these guys, whether it be Tarek Skubal or some of these others, pull down four seam usage and like play with other things, but still use that four seam in leverage spots where he's most comfortable with the offering. Just wonder if it's a matter of, to Will Crow's point, like getting more comfortable knowing that the four seam isn't the pitch to go to in these spots where it's going to allow more damage. Like if he's comfy with the four seam and he's like, I love throwing this thing two strike, go for it, man. Like I think he can miss bats two strike. Two strike, you can do a lot of things and not really run into a ton of issues because the hitter's at such a disadvantage. But yeah, I think it's some of the stuff around mix. And then the catchers are terrible. And I don't know, they have a new GM there. Like I wonder if like a Sean Doolittle hops up into a more prominent role there and maybe has more say, because like he's a really sharp dude. I imagine he's seeing a lot of the things we're seeing publicly with Gore. I just wonder whether he has the ability to go, yes, we're doing this. Like he's not the pitching coach. Like I don't know much about the pitching coach there, but I wonder if is it DeBartolo? I don't want to say his name, but he's the guy that hops in and is like, cool, we're doing a lot of things differently now. Like MacKenzie Gore's four seems too high. And it's like Sean Doolittle's probably going to agree with that. I would bet if you made me a betting man. I'm really bullish on Gore. I think he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball for the next couple of years, partially because whenever you see like a large turnover for a GM, high level org, anything, like good things usually happen. And the Nats have to fix their catching problem from a defensive standpoint. Like that's got to be the 1A thing on DeBartolo's list, right? Like he pops open his outlook and it's on the freaking schedule. It's like, figure out how to not have Riley Adams catch 80 games. Like I don't know what to tell you apart from that.
I've been saying this for a while because K-Bear Ruiz, I think there's one year I had like minus 20 catching framing runs. And like, I'm a Patrick Corbin guy. And like, I never thought Corbin was that bad, but you look what he's doing in Texas with like the core of guys down there. It's night and day.
Yeah. I think again, getting to my point that I got derailed from, but just because I was rambling, but yeah, I think catching valuation is still something we're figuring out. I think that if you're a bad framer, I'm going to take a wild guess and say you maybe don't do other things that great. Maybe this is me overstepping, but I'm not saying like game prep and stuff like that. But we generally see all the really good catchers that frame also are good game callers and stuff. Like, why does Martin Maldonado still have a job? You know, like he's a great game caller. They'll take the offensive hit because of how he works with pitchers. We do not see a lot bad framers who are then like the guys, oh, I love working with that guy. It's like, can we name any catcher in the history of baseball where people were like, I love working with him?
He's a good vibes
he's
guy.
Actually the worst framer in the league. You know, it's like, I don't think that happens a lot.
What if he's a fun hang though?
If he's a fun hang, then like make him the catching coordinator or something in the clubhouse, you know, like why not? Like there's a lot of money in baseball. Like if you like these guys, just turn them into more coaching style roles. I don't know. Keep them in the org. Vibes guys are important, man.
You can't quantify that. The spreadsheet.
I know. I'm cool to admit that. Everything doesn't need to be quantified. Vibes guys matter.
Do you think ABS would help soften the blow of some of that stuff, though?
I think it would. Yeah, I think it would. It's a good question. I think that we'd see like certain guys would be really good at challenging, I imagine. That'd be an interesting leaderboard that Savant, I'm sure, would make if ABS comes in, is like, who's the best overturner of calls, and then you could back into like who actually has the best understanding of strike zone. Maybe there's strong correlation there with framing and stuff, but I think MLB had some info from spring when they did all this and showed that catchers were far and away, and it was a small sample, so I don't know if far and away is predictive, but they were far and away better at overturning calls, or like overturn rate was higher than pitchers or batters. And I believe pitchers were next and batters were the worst. So I thought that's really funny, because if I'm a team thinking about this, I'm probably like, Juan Soto can challenge. No one else in the lineup can challenge. We're saving all the challenges for the other side of the ball. We're like, our catcher is going to be way more accurate. That's just a kind of half-baked idea I have, but I wonder if that creeps in eventually when we get ABS.
Well, I think I read something was like pitchers think everything is a strike. So like they're probably not the best. They're not the best judge of whether or not to challenge something versus like Cal Raleigh in the All-Star game. Like, yep, that was not that should be challenged.
It's a great point.
My last question, because I know you have to run. Yeah. You do so much research. You cover a whole bunch of teams. Like, is there a correlation between teams that like invest in analytics, invest in that side of the ball, and results in terms of like pitching? Because I know Colorado, there's a whole article is like the Rockies they're outdated and they don't spend any money, and it's that obviously played in some of their stuff. Have you noticed a correlation between teams that invest and actually get results?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm trying to pull up if I can do this in time here. Is some of the minor league stats on the pitching side this year specifically. I would say, yeah, I think that at the end of the day, like you could go to something. I mean, K minus walk is something I've started using a lot more this year because I think it's really simple to understand and it's super powerful. We keep trying to come up with really cool stuff to layer on top. And like a lot of the time it's not as predictive, or it's like marginally more predictive for far more complexity from an interpretability standpoint on stats. So I use K minus walk a lot. I think that, so here you go, top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's go top. I'm going to rip them here. Top 9 teams in K minus walk in the minor leagues. Okay. Mets, very good at pitching development, one of the up and up teams. Rangers, a little surprising, but great on the minor league side. Tigers is a team that you'll hear often as one of the best minor league pitching development orgs. Then you have Giants, Blue Jays, Marlins is interesting. Toronto and Miami both turned over a lot of major minor league pitching staff, so perhaps uptrend teams. And then you have the Rays and the Yankees, who are also really good. So all those teams, I would say, check out on like the forward thinking side or doing cool stuff, investing in tech. You want to go to the inverse of this? A couple teams in here are fascinating, but the D-backs don't do a great job in the minor league pitching side. Nationals, Angels, and then you get some interesting teams, Reds, Dodgers, who have a terrible walk rate in the minors. So that's a little more cloudy, but I think something as simple as like K minus walk in the minor gets you at like what teams are valuing things properly from an analytical standpoint and actually implementing it in a way that they're seeing success with. So yeah, I think that there are trends. How they're getting to the K minus walk is an interesting question. That's probably far more ambiguous of like, I think in the minor league side, I've been trying to like conceptualize this, but you kind of have like two buckets. I see at least you have like, I'll call it like the Dodgers philosophy tree, or it might even be more the Rays philosophy because Friedman went to the Dodgers, but this is like fastball forward, velo push, get it in zone. Dodgers aren't getting it in zone, but Rays are doing a great job getting it in zone, and the Tigers are doing a great job getting it in zone. There's a lot of overlap between those teams in terms of people that have been in all those orgs. So that's like one path, and then you have the other path, which is like Marlins, prior Mariners regime, Red Sox regime, which is like just stop throwing your four seam fastball in the minors. We'll figure out other stuff, and then the mixed diversity route will definitely get you to a better result. Now, the mixed diversity, there's a lot of overlap. Like the Dodgers, Tigers, et cetera, like the mixed diversity. It's just they're getting to their solutions in different ways. So those are probably like your two buckets on the minor league side. And again, like those teams are not doing it from like a let me throw darts at a wall and like ideate on this stuff and like group play around with ideas and just like end up on stuff. Like they're modeling all this out and backing into these answers, I think, for the most part. So I would say there is a correlation. I'd use, again, as I just did, K minus walk. There's probably other ways to do it, whether it be forcing velo, et cetera, that'll back you into the teams that are doing a really good job on the minor league side, integrating data back into player performance.
Fascinated. I could ask you 1,000 questions. I mean, we could do this. This could be a 10-part mini series of me. Just I'm so fascinated by this stuff. But this is awesome, dude. Thank you so much for coming on and making absolutely. The time. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. I read your shit every day, so it's like this is the coolest thing ever. So thank you so much.
Always, man. Thanks for having me. Ton of fun.